This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
Huge weekend, and it's probably one of the bigger recruiting weekends that people have seen at the Swamp in some time. And look, the ball's in Florida's court now. They got to go out and do something, and this is your opportunity. Though it's a great measuring stick game against a school you recruit against for probably 12 to 15 guys each class. So there's a lot on the table here.
Talk about the biggest names. I know we've got Dallas Wilson, 5-star wide receiver. DJ Pickett, I believe, is supposed to be there. Some linemen that you've been hyping up. That look, you like Florida, but Florida's got to prove it.
Yeah, sometimes I can't remember all the names, and I don't want to be looking at my phone the whole time. But so I'll go position by position. Believe it or not, at quarterback, there's a guy that nobody's talking about. He's a 3-star guy. He's committed to Old Dominion. But if you're Florida, you've got to basically cover all your bases. So Ryan Huff, the quarterback's coming in, and he's playing well, and Florida's looking for a developmental quarterback in this class. This is third visit since the summer. Maybe they offer him. But in terms of big name, I just want to throw that out there because,
Sure.
He is a quarterback. Position by position, running back Florida's already set there. Tight end Florida's already set there. But then you start looking at receiver. You mentioned him, Dallas Wilson, 5-star Oregon commit, but he's at Tampa Bay Tech. He's right down the road from Gainesville. Tampa has always been Gator country. That's a city where Florida has really dominated recruiting for years and years and years, really going back 100 years. And so, and I didn't cover those guys, but that's a guy now, he has to see Florida play well. That's it. I mean, he loves Oregon. And the only way you're going to convince a guy not to go somewhere is you got to show him something that, you really got to show him something. So he's coming this weekend, and he also probably will come back for an official visit. But Miami's trying to flip him too. So again, the benefit for him is he doesn't just get to see a good game. He gets to watch 2 of the 3 schools that are trying the hardest to flip him from Oregon. I'd say Florida's got a slim chance for him entering the weekend, guys. But if you win, because really I've talked to a lot of recruits. Half of them are expecting Miami to win. Those are the guys that you can really impress because they're not thinking Florida's going to win. So you can if you're Florida, you really want these guys to pick against you. Because then you can open their eyes. Hey, these guys are a lot better than I thought they would be.
Sure.
That's one receiver. On the offensive line, you got a big one, and I go on and on. Tavares Dice, the Auburn commit.
There it is.
He's been to Florida many times. He could play guard. He could play tackle. Auburn's playing somebody like Alabama A&M or somebody like that this first weekend. And so it was a great opportunity to get him to Gainesville. However, that's still Auburn's season opener. He's still committed to Auburn, and yet he's choosing to come down to Gainesville with a Georgia offensive line commit who's his teammate at Langston Hughes High School up in Atlanta, and that's Dontrell Glover. I haven't heard much about his recruitment. Maybe he likes it. We'll see. But that may be one where he's just kind of check out the lay of the land. We'll see. But Tavares Dice, Florida is realistically in this, probably 40-60 chance. But if you win, and maybe Auburn isn't so great, and Auburn's got an easier schedule in Florida this year, but it's a good chance for Florida to show him not only a good product, but, hey, we as a program, we're developing guys. Look at Austin Barber. Look at Najee Harris, the guys on the left side, because this kid can play either position. And look what, as a staff, we've done with those guys. Well, they got to do it first, obviously. I mean, you hope they play well. So they're in it with him. On the defensive line, a lot of big names. One of the guys we'll really keep an eye on, though, is a local kid, Jarquez Carter, because he is committed to Ohio State. And
yes, sir.
He wants to – he kind of changes his comments here and there. But the bottom line for him is when he watched Florida's D-line play last year, he wasn't that impressed. And he thought they were really just a gap control defense. Mm-hmm. And in other words, they weren't super aggressive, the style that he thinks he plays. Now,
Stephen Harris said that a lot.
Yeah, between us 3 guys, let's pretend nobody else is listening. Every recruit thinks that they play the aggressive style. But that's what he wants to be, and that's what he wants to see from Florida. So if the D-line looks good this year, and quite frankly, I think that's the area where Florida may be the most improved this year. Now, we'll see. They got to do it. But I think that's the area where they're going to be the most improved. That can get his attention. That can get the attention of some other guys. At linebacker, Ty Jackson, the number 1 linebacker in the country, is going to be there. Guys, I think if signing day was today, I think he signs with Florida. But if Florida goes 5-7, boy, that's going to hurt. He wants to play early. He loves the Gatorade program. By the way, I always make fun of the Gatorade program. Like, who cares about that? You know what I mean? Other than the people at Florida. Well, guess what? This guy and his family care about it. So that tells me Billy Napier knows a little bit more about this stuff than I do. So you got Alabama involved, Georgia, Penn State, FSU, and but right now, Florida, man, this is, he only visited one school that last week of July. There was a dead period for a month, then a dead period for a month after, and there was that 1 week where you could travel to colleges. He only went to one school, and it was Florida. And he's down in Loxahatchee, Florida, Palm Beach County. So they've got a real chance with him. I mean, like a really good chance. So that's a guy you could, again, a guy that wants to see something, wants to see how the season plays out. He probably won't have a decision until later in the year. DJ Pickett, committed to LSU, #1 cornerback in the country for On Three, and I'm going on and on here. But Corey Raymond, former Florida coach,
Sure,
got him at LSU. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think Florida fans were thrilled with the recruiting here, and then he gets DJ Pickett. But so he's solid LSU, but he has always said in multiple interviews, if Florida wins games this year, that's what's missing. If they win games, I'm going to give them a good look. So this is, I don't know that this one game is going to convince people to go to Florida.
Sure,
but it can be an eye opener. It can lay the groundwork for more visits. The great thing about this schedule, which is murder, obviously, but the great thing is you've got 6, 7 home games where you really can get kids to those games. They want to come.
It's the best recruiting tool in the world. I mean, you're going to have look, as a fan, I'm pumped for the games. How could you not be excited to go to every single game? And I think that if, when Florida gets on that roll, this stadium is been thriving to be fired up. And I think Saturday is going to be a whole another level, which, look, I do want to ask you, because when we had you on earlier, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. So
we talked about where Florida was in recruiting. They've landed 2 or 3. Ladies and gents, it's football time, which also means it's betting time. Whether betting lines, over-unders, right? Pick'ems, what have you. The best place to do it is a link in the description at BetUS. And for your first 3 deposits, you get back 125% up to $2,000. They're actually just giving money away. And I'm telling you right now, their lines are incredible for everyone to win. They've got overs and unders that are making me scratch my head going, are they sure they want to do this? 4.5 on Florida. They got 10.5 on Oregon. Fantastic stuff. You guys want to be sure to check that thing out. So link is in the description. Let's get back to the content here. And be sure to like and subscribe too if you can. Since we last had you on the show, which has amped them up a little bit in the recruiting class. And look, we said they're probably not going to be very high going into the season. They're at a healthier spot than when we spoke originally. And with the list that we have, let's just say we land 70% of this list if things go properly. This class all of a sudden becomes a legitimate threat for a top 5 class. Am I wrong there? Or yes.
Top 5 is going to be hard. Okay, so
come on, Keith, give me the juice. I told people you're going to say we're going to land #1 class.
Why I got to be the guy to give all the bad news? Okay. No, here's why. So the way we do it at On Three, we don't have a class calculator like at my old company 24/7, which, by the way, all of us at On Three help build 24/7. But you can figure it out, and here's how. So at the end of the last cycle, if you took the top 18 guys that you signed, the highest 18th ranked guys you signed, you added up their numbers and then you divided it by 18, you got a score. And that score might be like a 91.6. And that would tell you, that's how you determine the rankings. If the average rating of your 18 top commits was 94, you probably had the #2 class in the country. Well, I did some math today, and even if Florida flips DJ Pickett, even if Florida flips Solomon Thomas of FSU, the 5-star offensive line, best case scenario, they're going to squeak into the top 10. Best case scenario. And that's okay. That's okay. They just were a little bit behind everybody else. I mean, look, it was a perfect storm this offseason. Little cloud of uncertainty hanging over the staff. You have every once in a while you get this Rashada news floating out there. You had ETN transfer out. People wondering if Billy's going to be here. So they were fighting an uphill battle. And to their credit, this class was ranked 56th in the country the first week of July. 56th. It's up to 19th. But remember now, it'd be one thing if just Florida was adding commits, right? Then they'd shoot up. But everybody else is adding them too. I mean, I know it's simplistic.
I get that makes more sense. I just think we're going to get everybody. That's the mindset that I have. But once we flip Thomas, DJ Pickett, we land Ty Jackson, we flip Dallas Wilson, then that's what I'm looking at. I'm counting up who the guaranteed locks are. Tavares Dice, right?
Well,
There we go. That puts us.
I was looking at LSU's class last year, and I think they finished 6th or 7th, just to get a perspective here. And I think they had 1 or 2 5-stars and 17, 18 4-stars. So every one of the guys that you were factoring into their score was a 4-star or above. It's really competitive at the top. But now, not every class, like LSU may be 6th, Florida may be 7th, let's say. But maybe Florida's difference makers are DJ Lagway, and their difference maker is, let's say, a 5-star linebacker. Well, a 5-star quarterback, if he pans out, is going to have more impact on your program. I always go back to Clemson. We knew that Clemson, I hate to brag here, but Clemson, remember before they started winning big, the problem was always offensive and defensive line, right? They just didn't have the offensive line to compete against the Alabamas and Georgias of the world. So we knew when they started getting better there, they had all the skill guys and all that. But what really put them to the next level was getting Deshaun Watson in that one class. It wasn't a top 5 class. They got great pieces around him, but he elevated the program. So it's great that we love rankings, and we should get caught up in them because they do mean a lot. But sometimes the 13th ranked class ends up being better than the 7th ranked class because you might have one guy that just elevates your program. So Florida finished 10th last year. What if did I call him DJ Pickett? What if DJ Lagway ends up being the real deal? Now, we don't know. We don't know. We'd like
LJ McCray, too. Those are 2 guys like you've talked about, difference makers in the class that, again, the overall value of the class sits here, but those 2 guys elevate it on the football field to a level that you can't even comprehend.
Well, hey, look, you guys were babies, I'm sure, but we all knew Percy Harvin was a good recruit. Did we know he was that good?
I did.
I mean, that guy's like a top 10 all-time Florida player. So sometimes guys just I'll tell you who wasn't a big recruit, the guy that's going to be Mr. Two-Bits this year for the Miami game, Javon Curse.
Curse, yeah.
I think he was just an okay name. I mean, a big name, but not like a huge name. Not like now recruiting was different in the era, but we knew who those people were. You knew when Florida signed Emmitt Smith, everybody knew who he was, and that was the late 80s. So recruiting was still significant, was still big, still popular then, but that's a guy that elevated the program like a Javon Curse. So there always are guys out there. And quite frankly, you have to trust also Florida's evaluation skills, which seemingly have been pretty good, quite frankly. Gregory Smith you guys are going to talk about the depth chart. Isn't he kind of prominent in the depth chart? A year ago, we didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
I can't say his last name at the moment, but that Joseph, I think it's like Match, whatever. He's getting all sorts of offers right now.
Georgia too.
Yeah, and by the way, I need to point that out there. Joseph Mbachu, 3-star defensive line commit for Florida, committed. He visited Florida on July 27th. They offered him that day. He committed the next, Tuesday or Wednesday. And Florida knew that he was going to take off. He just put on pads for the first time this spring in his life, okay? But I've seen different measurements. He's somewhere between 6'4.5" to 6'6", but 280 to 290 in that range. So he looks pretty, as they say. Looks good on the hoof. But he had never played, so it was only a matter of time. Florida watched him in the spring and got all the spring film, did their evaluations, brought him down to Gainesville, passed even more eye tests, passed the personality test, the character test, because that matters too, by the way. And now he's playing, and he's not even starting, but he's doing this. He's on an upward. I mean, it's every game the guy plays. He just played his first game ever in his life 2 weeks ago. Last week was his second game, and they go over to Alabama and beat the best team in Alabama. So, he's on an upward path. But now, South Carolina offered, then Auburn, then Georgia.
Yeah.
Alabama today.
Compliment to Billy and the staff, though. So
now they got hold. He will be there Saturday. This is going to sound strange, and I used to cover Auburn, so people are probably like, "Oh, whatever." He's just shoving Auburn stuff down the Gator throat. But there are some connections to Auburn at his high school that I think is a team to watch. But he is going to be back in Gainesville this weekend, and they're going to the guy may end up being a 4-star in another month or two.
This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.